today. We've got so much content to get through. So we're going to just get started right away. We'll do some introductions. But first off, what are we talking about today? So on our agenda, we will start off with an introduction to reporting. In this section, we'll cover some more conceptual mental models, things like that. And then in sections 2, 3, and 4, we'll talk about work order reporting, asset health reporting, and some advanced reporting techniques. And in those 3 sections, we'll go into MaintainX and look at some more specific examples so you can see how reporting lives in MaintainX. A couple of frequently asked questions that we get: is this webinar being recorded and will I get a copy? Yes, a recording of this webinar will be sent to you via email by January 29th, so that's tomorrow. And then the other question we get is, how can I ask questions throughout the webinar? So on the right side of your screen or at the bottom, you should see a Q&A button. So if you go ahead and click that button, you can submit your questions. And we've got some of our lovely keyboard warriors here today. We've got Hiab and Daniel who will be answering your questions live in the chat. Now, if you don't see that Q&A button or you don't see a chat button or anything like that, it is most likely because when you came to the event today, you hit the full screen button. And I've got this slide here to show you what I want you to click instead. I know it's a very beautiful slide, but you want to hit the expand button as opposed to that button right above with the 4 corners of the square. So hitting expand is what will make the screen bigger and still allow you to participate in the chat and the polls and ask questions. Now, if you are new here, if you're new to these one-on-one webinars, hello, my name is Anoja. I'm a product education specialist on the customer education team. And so if you've ever used MaintainX Academy, if you've ever watched the videos on there, if you come to our webinars, that's all stuff that my team is responsible for. And joining me today, I've got Simone. So Simone, do you want to give a little intro to who you are and what you do here at MaintainX?
Sure. Thanks, Anoja. Hi, everyone. I'm Simone. I am a product marketing manager here at MaintainX, which basically means that I help launch features like the ones we're walking through today. We'll stop by with reporting, report builder, and basically my role is to help demystify more complex concepts, making it easy for you to get the most out of our product in your daily life. And really happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Simone. Okay, now if this is your first one-on-one webinar or just one of your first webinars with MaintainX, I'll go through this very quickly. Our mission here at MaintainX is to create one platform for maintenance, repairs, and operations to keep the physical world running. So we're building for the long term by pushing innovation in mobile workflows, real-time analytics, and APIs. And we're trying to be more than just a software. We have a world-class team here that develops and supports our products with industry expertise in manufacturing, facilities, and more. And here are some of our awards on the right side that we got from G2 for the winter 2026 season that we're really proud of, and just proof that, you know, we're kind of the shit around here. Pardon my language, but you know, we at MaintainX, we can talk about how great the product is, but there's your external or social proof. Now, let's get into things, and let me slow down a little bit. I wanted to rush through those introductions, but let's actually talk about reporting now. So when it comes to reporting, every day maintenance teams are creating data without even realizing it. You see every work order that gets completed, every asset that gets worked on, or every meter reading that gets logged, it all adds up. And the data is already there. It's built into your day-to-day work. So the hard part isn't collecting it, it's actually figuring out what it's actually telling you. That is where reporting comes in. Reporting pulls your work orders, your assets, and your time together so that you can see patterns instead of just individual jobs. And instead of relying on gut feel or one-off stories, reporting helps you spot things like repeat issues, rising downtime, or work that's getting done but isn't actually improving reliability. And that kind of visibility makes it a lot easier to make better decisions. Another thing is that reporting isn't all or nothing. Early on, it can help you answer some basic questions like what's getting done and where problems are showing up. But as teams mature, reporting helps catch patterns sooner. It helps you check whether preventive work is paying off, and it supports your longer term planning. So no matter where you're starting from, reporting can add value. So now that we know why reporting matters and we're all on the same page, let's talk about what actually makes reporting effective. And to do that, we've got a little activity here for you, just a quick one. I want everyone in the audience to imagine the world's best burger. Okay, I know it feels a bit random. I'll make a point soon about it, but I want you to think about the world's best burger. And I actually want you to let us know what that is for you. So in the chat, you have an option. It can be a burger from a fast food place, it can be a burger that you make, whatever it is, tell us about it. What are the toppings you put on it? How do you like it cooked? Like whatever the world's best burger is to you, let us know. So probably take a second for folks to get some answers in the chat, but we are going to wait on them. And in the meantime, I'll share my favorite burger. So my favorite burger right now is from a place called Rudy's. It's in my town. I don't think they're a chain or anything, maybe one or two locations, but they do smash burgers. And I am new to smash burgers. It kind of took me a while to be convinced with smash burgers, but truly I love them. And I think one thing that's weird about my taste when it comes to burgers is I love a soggy bun. Okay. There is nothing that makes me happier than a soggy bun when it's melted into the burger, when the cheese is all mixed in there. Like I love that. So soggy buns and extra pickles. That is how I like my burgers. Simone, let me know about what your favorite burger is.
All right. Well, I see that you are like right at home. A lot of folks seem to agree with the smash burger. I haven't seen mine yet, which is the In-N-Out burger. I am from the
Mhm.
West Coast, California, and double animal style. So that's also quite a messy bun, unless I decide to go with the lettuce instead of the bread. So,
Yes. I mean, why would you go with the lettuce instead of the bread? Always go for the bread. Both carbs are
well,
not bad, but Simone, no
if you want
judgment.
to be
I've been
healthy.
there. Yeah, no, I get it, girl. I get it. I've done the keto thing. It hasn't worked clearly, but I have tried it and I respect it. Now let's see what folks in the audience have to say. So let me scroll up a little bit. We've got Ernie loves Five Guys. Five Guys also very good. I've got double smash burgers, Big Macs. I mean, that's a classic. You can't go wrong with a Big Mac. I see a Juicy Lucy. That's very interesting. I have no idea what that is, but it sounds
Mm,
good. Yeah, a lot of smash burgers in here for sure. Cindy, I think I know you. I think I met you at Ranchworks Atlanta. Cindy loves a cowboy burger, so I would love to know more about that. That sounds good to me. Yeah, lots of different options. Homemade with mayo and ketchup. But if you go
homemade.
through the chat, that's a good one, right? If you go through the chat, you can see everyone's got different tastes, right? Like for the most part, a lot of people or most people love burgers, but how we eat them is going to range depending on our tastes. Now, reporting is kind of the same. You see, reporting isn't just for one set of people. It's not just for high senior leadership or executives or the folks in the boardroom. It's how everyone in your organization, from the floor to the boardroom, measures success. We all rely on data to make decisions. But what each of us wants from a report can look a little different, kind of like how we all love burgers, but not everyone orders the same one. See, your job as an admin is to serve the right burger to the right audience. Now, one important thing to remember about reporting is that not everyone is looking for the same thing, even when they're using the same data. Think of it like burgers. You've got the same ingredients, right? Everyone's going to get a bun, everyone's going to get some variation of vegetables, unless you don't like vegetables, but at least a patty in there of some sort. But there's different builds. Now, when it comes to reporting, you've got three distinct audiences here. First off, we've got technicians. So for technicians, reporting needs to stay simple. They're usually looking for quick status updates like, am I keeping up? What's assigned to me? What needs attention today? So their reports should feel like a classic burger. No extra layers, easy to understand, familiar, and fast to grab so they can get back to work. Now, managers need a bit more depth. They're trying to understand how work is flowing, so where things are getting stuck, how teams are balancing their workload, and whether trends are moving in the right direction. The data is the same here, but it's layered. There's more context, there's more breakdown, there's enough detail to spot patterns without getting lost in the weeds. And then when it comes to executives, they're looking at things from even higher up. They care about outcomes. So that's cost, uptime, risk, and overall performance. They don't need every detail, but they need a clear, polished view that helps them understand what the data means and how it impacts their business. And that's really what the key takeaway here is, that good reporting isn't about showing everything to everyone. It's about serving the right information to the right audience at the right level. Now, every great burger starts with the right ingredients, and it's the same with reports. One way to make reporting easier to think about is to group metrics into a few core categories. So think of these as the main ingredients in most of your maintenance reports. Almost everything you'll look at fits into one of these four buckets. First off, we've got uptime and reliability. Reliability. So this is the foundation. These metrics help answer the question, how reliable are our assets? So things like MTBF, which is your mean time between failures, MTTR, lots of acronyms here, which is your mean time to repair, and your downtime percentage live in this bucket. So you'll see these used heavily in asset health reporting, where your goal is to understand which equipment is performing well and which assets might be becoming a risk. Next is completion and flow. So this category focuses on how work moves through your system. It's what's getting done and whether it's getting done on time. Metrics like work order completion rate and schedule compliance help teams see if planned work is actually being executed as expected. And these reports are especially helpful for spotting bottlenecks or backlogs before they become bigger problems. Third category we've got is labor and productivity. So this is all about how effectively your team's time is being used. It helps answer questions like, are we spending time on the right work? Or how efficiently is work getting completed? Metrics here often look at technician productivity, response to start speed, or how much time is spent on hands on work versus administrative tasks. And then our final category is cost and parts. So these metrics show where resources are going, including labor cost, parts usage, and overall maintenance spend. Reports in this category help teams understand spending patterns and identify opportunities to reduce any waste or prevent any costly emergency work. So you'll use all of these categories, but you'll just portion them differently based on who's eating the report. Okay. Now, quick thing, you don't need to track every metric in every category all the time. All right. The key takeaway here is that these four categories give you a simpler framework for thinking about reporting. So as we move into specific reports and demos, you'll see how different views in MaintainX naturally map back to one of these categories. All right, I'm going to take a break here, and Simone, I'm going to pass it off to you to talk about work order reporting.
Yes. All right. Now let's get into some work order reporting in MaintainX. So work order reporting is all about visibility into your work execution. It shows what work is actually getting done, not just what was scheduled. This includes completed work, work that's overdue, and what's sitting in the backlog. Instead of relying on assumptions, these reports help teams see how work is truly flowing through their maintenance operation. One of the biggest benefits of work order reporting is identifying bottlenecks early. Overdue work orders and growing backlogs are often early warning signs. These reports show where work slows down, piles up, or repeatedly falls behind, which makes it easier for you to step in before small delays turn into missed deadlines or reactive firefighting. And I just lost my place. Sorry, guys. Let's talk about visibility. Right. So, work order reporting also helps teams understand how labor hours are being used. Instead of guessing where time goes, you can see how effort is spread across different types of work. This helps to highlight imbalances, like too much time spent on reactive tasks or not enough labor capacity for planned maintenance. This insight supports better workload planning and more realistic scheduling. Now let's switch gears a bit. We'll talk about understanding unplanned versus or planned versus unplanned work. Excuse me. Completion and execution show whether work is getting done, but they don't tell you what kind of work you're completing. You can have strong completion metrics, for example, as in lots of work orders getting completed. However, you can still be mostly reacting to breakdowns. Planned versus unplanned reports help teams see whether preventive maintenance is actually reducing your reactive work. So, if you're seeing unplanned work staying high, it could be a sign that PM efforts aren't keeping up, even if the team is staying busy. This view helps teams understand whether their maintenance strategy is actually working. And when teams can clearly see work order execution data, planning becomes more grounded. Work order reporting supports better staffing decisions, more realistic schedules, and clearer priorities. It also reduces the risk of overdue or forgotten tasks by making issues visible early. Instead of reacting to problems after the fact, teams can plan with confidence. So now I want to bring a question to the group, and that is the biggest challenge in your work order reporting today. So when you're thinking about how you're doing reporting around your work orders, which one stands out the most to you? Is it lack of accurate data? Is it hard to see trends over time? Or hard to measure team performance? Or maybe there's just not a single source of truth? I'd love to hear which one is the most pressing challenge for you all today. So feel free to vote, and we'll give you guys a few seconds to give us your replies.
All right. I think that's the official 8-second facilitator count. So there we go.
All right. Interesting. So obviously we see a clear winner here where it's hard to measure team performance. I think going back to the burger analogy, that's labor, which is what our protein. So that makes a lot of sense. It's a very important part of the data set that we are looking at. And then lack of accurate data is also a good one. You could have a bunch of data, but is it accurate? Are your teams submitting data or entering in forms consistently, but maybe not accurately? That's a common one we see, as well as hard to measure team performance. And then hard to see trends over time. That's definitely one we see as well, and no single source of truth. So thank you. This is really helpful. Anything you would want to say on that, Anoja, before we move on?
No, I think you've pretty much got it covered. I'm just ready to get into this demo section
All
next
right.
up. So
Let's see how
let's
it
keep
works.
moving. Yeah, thanks everyone. So as mentioned, we're going to do some live demos throughout these next few sections, and specifically with work order reporting. Let me just switch over into my sandbox view, and there we go. So we're going to be exploring this reporting module right over here. And the first place we're looking at is the work orders tab. Now, a quick thing that is relevant to all reports in this section is your date range that's at the top of this page. So every report that you see here is tied to a date range. So it's important to be intentional about the time period that you're looking at. So make sure you're setting that at the top here. We'll keep it at the last 90 days. That's what we've got right now. And just know that the same report can tell you very different stories depending on the date that you are looking at. So, shorter date ranges can tell can be helpful when you're investigating maybe a specific issue, whereas longer date ranges are better when you're looking for overall performance or trends. A good habit is to just adjust the date range first before drawing any conclusions, and it's often the fastest way to tell whether something is a one off event or if it's an ongoing pattern. All right, now that we've got our date range selected, first report we're going to look at is created versus completed. So this report tells us whether the work that we're creating is actually getting completed. So, and also how well that work is flowing through our system. So we've got these metrics here at the top: created, completed, created. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's how many work orders entered the system during this time period that we've got here at the top. And then completed is how many work orders were closed. If you look at the chart over here, as you can see, when we hover over them, we can get the exact number of work orders that were created and completed in that specific period. And we can even click into each data point to pull up the work orders associated with that data point. So I'll actually grab the one here. So that way we can see which of our work orders are overdue, what's in progress, what's open, and we can get a better understanding of what is actually slowing things down and what work is on hold or what's taking longer than expected. Now, when it comes to these two lines here, we want to see how close together they are. When they're tracking closely together, it usually means that teams are keeping up with their demand. But if you're seeing that the created line consistently outpaces the completed line, then that's a sign that your backlog may be growing. So that's what we've got to say about that. And then one more thing is even with we hovered over the report and we clicked into it and we could see all the work orders. You can do this for, I'd say, most of the reports in this section. So I may not explicitly mention on the other reports that you can click into the data point and see the work orders associated with it, but just know that that is an option. Now, one last thing when it comes to interpreting this data, there is this percent completed over here. And this metric is our total completed work orders divided by our total created. So typically for newer teams, you may see a value around 60%. And as your processes improve over time, you may see this number increase to even 80% or higher. So seeing 80% or higher is often a sign that work creation and completion are well balance, but we're not striving for perfection here. Okay. What matters is understanding whether work is flowing or if it's getting stuck. All right. Let's move on to the next report, which is work orders by type. So, this report over here shows you how many work orders are classified as preventive, reactive, cycle count, or other based on the work type field when you're creating a work order. So your total preventive ratio up here is the number of preventive work orders divided by the total of preventive plus reactive work orders. But what that means essentially is that this number gives us a sense of how much our work is planned, as in it's preventive, versus unplanned or reactive work. Now, a stronger preventive ratio is often associated with better asset availability and efficiency. And a total preventive ratio of about 80% is a good goal to aim for. But also, industry context matters, right? And in some sectors that maybe have a lot more reactive work, it can be lower. So just keep that in mind. But essentially, we want to use this report to understand when reactive maintenance is dominating and to identify areas where preventive maintenance can be expanded. Next, we're going to look at the time versus cost report. We're not looking at all of them. It would take us way too long to do that. But we're just looking at a few key reports that a lot of our customers tend to gravitate towards. So now we're looking at time versus cost. Now, this report compares the actual time logged on completed work orders to the labor cost associated with that work. So your total reported time spent is the total number of hours logged across your completed work orders. And then your total reported cost spent is the total labor cost logged on those work orders. So this does not include parts costs, by the way. But seeing these two numbers side by side gives us a quick sense of how much work is. How much time work is taking compared to what it's costing us. And we can also toggle between time reported and cost reported here so that we can compare hours and dollars over a certain period of time. And like I mentioned earlier, hovering over the chart here shows the exact number of hours or the cost spent for that period. And that can help us spot any spikes or patterns that may be worth looking into. And then once again, I'll do it one last time just to show you when you've got a chart like this where you can hover over it, just click into it and you'll see it'll pull up a list of work orders associated to that specific bar that we just clicked on. All right. Final thoughts or final takeaways, I guess, for this report is that it's especially useful for budgeting and efficiency conversations because it shows your actual labor impact as opposed to just how many work orders were completed. So when your time or cost is higher than expected, then drilling into those work orders helps uncover whether the driver is process or if it's asset condition or something else. All right, next report we'll look at is time to complete. So that's this one right here. And this report shows how long work orders actually take from the moment they open until they're completed. So the lines here show your average time that work orders spent in different statuses like open, in progress, or on hold, and the average repair time for reactive work. We've also got these metrics here. There's total hours and average hours, and these can help you understand your overall speed from work order start to finish. And then MTTR average hours. So again, that's mean time to repair. This shows how long reactive repairs take on average and can be a really useful benchmark for understanding your responsiveness or your team's responsiveness to any unplanned issues. So this report is most helpful when you want to see not just total work, but how time is distributed across statuses and repairs. And then if we're talking about target benchmarks, so in general, a lower MTTR means that reactive issues are being solved more quickly, which often points to better responsiveness and less downtime. Now, what a good MTTR looks like can vary a lot depending on the asset type, the environment, and criticality. So it's most useful when you're comparing it over time or across similar assets. So rather than aiming for a single universal number here, many teams use MTTR to track whether repairs are getting faster and to identify assets or processes that consistently take longer than expected. So here, it's not just like a specific, oh, I'm trying to get under 2 hours. You're just trying to keep beating what it's currently at. And then last report here, just quickly I'll cover is on time versus overdue. And this report looks at how many work orders are completed by their due date versus how many of them slip past their due date and go into overdue. So it becomes especially useful once due dates are being used consistently, as in when you're creating your work orders, you're actually assigning a due date. And that's how you can help your team see whether schedules are realistic and where commitments may be breaking down. So we won't dive into it too deeply here, but it's a really helpful follow on view for scheduling and workload alignment. Now, one last thing I'll mention when it comes to work order reports and really all of the reports in MaintainX is that the reporting section can only unlock insights if there's data actually being captured in the rest of MaintainX, especially in the work orders module. So when work orders are created with the right information and your technicians are completing them in MaintainX, you're rewarded with data that you can actually use. But beyond having data, we also want to make sure that that data is clean. We want it to be consistent. So good data hygiene, as we like to call it, really comes down to standardization. And MaintainX helps with that through work order settings. So if you head over to the settings menu and go to features and then set preferences under work orders, you'll have the option to make certain fields required so that whenever an admin is creating a work order, they have to select an asset, they have to select a location, they have to create a due date before they can even create that work order. And then you can also require time and cost tracking so that when your technicians are completing their reports, they are required to submit how long it took them to complete the work order and any costs associated with the work order before they can close it out. So, if you want reliable data in your reports like time versus cost, make sure you're setting a due date. If you want data in some of your cost reports, make sure you're getting your technicians to submit those costs when they are closing out their work orders. And you can do that by just toggling on those settings. And that helps you make sure that everyone is capturing the same information in the same way. So that consistency is what's going to make the reports that we just looked at accurate and trustworthy across your organization. All right, we're going to flip back over to our slides and let's talk about some best practices when it comes to work order reporting. All right, so first best practice we've got here is number one, make critical fields required and keep them up to date. So if a report demands, if a report depends on a field, make that field required. And doing this upfront will save you from opening a report later on and wondering why the numbers don't make sense or why the data is missing. Next is require users to fill in time and cost entries before marking work order is done. So before a work order is marked done, make sure that time and cost is filled in. We just talked about it a moment ago, but again, it's really important. So I just want to reiterate that again. This is the kind of information that's going to help with your time versus cost or your MTTR reports. And then last, we've got reinforce consistent work order usage in your facility. So reporting only works if the work orders are actually used. If the work happens outside of MaintainX or work orders are getting skipped, then your reports will always be incomplete. So consistent usage is what makes your data something that you can trust. All right, so that's all we've got for work order reporting. Well, there's a lot more, obviously, but for this session, we'll cap it at that. And let's move on to asset health reporting. Simone, come back, take over. I need a sip of water.
I'll give you a bit of a break. All right, so asset health reporting. This is reporting that shows you how equipment performs over time. So instead of looking at individual breakdowns in isolation, Next slide. These reports help teams understand reliability patterns across assets. They show where failures repeat, where downtime increases, and reliability risk may be building. At a high level, asset health reporting helps answer one key question: which assets are helping us run smoothly and which ones are holding us back? So, once you can see the overall performance, the next step is identifying which assets deserve attention first. And that's where we get into problematic assets. So, asset health reporting also makes it easier to identify the bad actor assets. These are assets that fail more often, take longer to repair, or cause disproportionate downtime. Without reporting, these patterns can be easy to miss. So, with asset health views, teams can quickly see which assets are driving the most risk and prioritize their efforts accordingly. Once you've identified problem assets, the next question is whether preventive maintenance is actually helping. Preventive maintenance programs only work if they improve reliability. Asset health reporting helps teams see whether PMs are actually reducing failures. It reveals whether breakdowns are decreasing, repeating, or shifting to different failure modes. This allows teams to refine PM strategies instead of assuming that more PMs automatically lead to better results. When PMs are effective, one of the biggest benefits is fewer unexpected disruptions. And one of the clearest outcomes of strong asset health reporting is reduced unplanned downtime. By identifying reliability risks earlier, teams can address issues before they turn into emergencies. Over time, these small interventions add up and leading to fewer surprises and more stable operations. This shift from reactive response to proactive reliability is a key marker of maintenance maturity. Reliability data also supports bigger, longer term decisions. Asset health reporting plays a role in repair versus replace decisions. And instead of relying on guesswork, teams can look at reliability history, downtime impact, and recurring repair patterns. This shift this shifts conversations from opinion-based to data-backed, and crucial differentiator when it comes to decisions involving cost, risk, or long-term planning. Beyond individual decisions, asset health reporting also helps improve maintenance strategy as a whole, and that is turning patterns into better plans. I think that would be next slide. So asset health reporting helps guide what to do next. Patterns in failures, downtime, and reliability inform better maintenance plans. Teams can adjust PM schedules, focus on high-risk assets, and make more informed long-term decisions. So now we'll flip to you all and ask another question to the group, which is what drives the highest maintenance cost in your facility today? And we got to pick one, but there might be a few for everyone. But what's the most, I guess, costly of these for you? Is it unexpected breakdowns? Is it labor on repeat issues? Is it parts and inventory waste? Or maybe you're not sure. We'll give you all a few seconds to give us your response. Play a little music in our head.
Yeah. I wish we had some like Jeopardy music or maybe Family Feud or something. But yeah, we won't sing for you folks. So you don't want that. We're better at talking about reporting, so we'll just let you select in silence. But hopefully it's not too hard of a question there. And also, like Simone said, we get it. It might be hard to select just one. We're kind of limited with this tool. We can only do one choice as opposed to letting you select multiple. So just think of like maybe what's driving the most of it or like majority. But
Hmm.
there we go. There's some
It
answers for us.
looks like, yeah, it looks like we're seeing a pretty clear winner here. So unexpected breakdowns being the front runner, which is not surprising. Obviously with PM plans, that definitely helps, but that visibility that data can bring you with asset health is such a huge, impactful resource and feature to help reduce the unexpected breakdown. Labor on repeat issues as well is a clear second, but good to see less on parts and inventory waste. And it seems like most of you all know exactly what costs you the most money. So that's good to see and very common for us and customers.
Yeah. Awesome. All right.
All right. So
So
back to you, Anoja.
Yeah, we're gonna head into our live demo for the asset health reporting section. So earlier we looked at work order reporting, and that meant we were in this work orders tab. Now we're gonna look at asset health. Um, I am sharing my screen, right? Okay, yeah. Let me actually make this a little bit bigger. Sorry, it's a bit no, maybe that didn't help. Sorry, folks. I have like 4 windows that I'm working with here, but hopefully that zoom in helps a little bit. But first off, let us look at the most problematic asset report. So that's this first one right over here. And this report shows us which of our assets are causing the most trouble based on unplanned downtime, failures, and cost. By default, these assets are sorted by unplanned downtime. So the assets with the most unplanned hours appear at the top. And I'm zoomed in, so I'll have to scroll a little bit, but you can see there's a few different columns here. There's our unplanned downtime column. And just as a reminder, unplanned downtime is the total number of hours an asset was offline unexpectedly. Now, there's also a failures column over here, and this tells us how many times each asset has failed or been set to offline unexpectedly. So, a higher number of failures usually means some reliability issues for that asset. There's also the labor and parts cost column. This is the one that I feel like really hits the most when you see how much it is costing you. Yeah, this shows how much labor and parts cost has been logged against that asset's work orders. And assets with high costs and high downtime are often the ones that we want to investigate first. So look at the labor and parts costs and then also unplanned downtime. Another thing that you might want to keep an eye on is how many of them are critical. So in our case, all of our assets that are problematic are critical. Probably not a great thing, right? That's not the best. That's not really what you want to see. But these are especially important to keep available, right? When your most problematic assets are also critical, that's a very strong signal for action. Now, when it comes to interpreting the data on this report, like we said, this report highlights your bad actors, aka the assets that are costing you the most in downtime and failure. So, assets at the top are usually the ones that you want to look at first when you're looking into improving reliability or adjusting any preventive maintenance plans. Let's move on to unplanned downtime by reasons. So that's just over here. So we've got the unplanned downtime reasons report. And this report helps us understand why unplanned downtime is happening by breaking it down into specific reasons. And these are all reasons that you can customize in your settings. So you'll see the downtime grouped by downtime reason. We've got electrical, unspecified tool failure, maintenance, equipment failure, inspection. And this gives us a high level view of what's driving unexpected asset downtime. So each bar here represents a downtime reason, and the size of the bar shows how much unplanned downtime is attributed to that reason. And remember, it's also based on the time period that we've got set here at the top. So you want to make sure you are being intentional about the date ranges that you're setting. Um, what else can we talk about here? Now, if we click into these reports, like with the ones in work orders, we can see a list, or we can see the assets that they are specifically related to. And then that way we can understand which asset is actually behind these downtime reasons. So this report helps us shift the conversation from which assets are failing to why they're failing. So if there are 1 or 2 reasons that account for most of the unplanned downtime, then those are usually the best places to focus on when it comes to any of your improvement efforts. Now, how to get the best data out of this report? This report relies on downtime reasons being selected consistently when work orders are created or completed. So, like I said, you can set custom downtime reasons and make sure that when your technicians are completing work orders and they're setting assets to offline, they're selecting the correct reason for why that asset is going offline. So, the more consistently your downtime reasons are used, the more reliable this report becomes. And then Just quickly here, we've got the mean time between failure and mean time to repair. And I just wanted to call out this report very quickly here because there's also a MTTR metric when it comes to work orders, but this one is more asset specific. So just make sure you're keeping that in mind when you're looking at these reports and not getting the two numbers mixed up. But for time's sake, we'll keep it moving. But these are not all of the asset, or the ones that I've talked about are not all of the reports available in asset health. As you can see, there are quite a few here. If you're not seeing an asset health tab in your reporting section, it's because the asset health reporting is exclusive to, I believe, enterprise, maybe premium, but definitely enterprise. So if you're not seeing it, but you think you should be, just talk to your account manager or your CSM, and they can help you figure that out. I think that's all. We'll keep it there. We'll cap it at that for asset health, and let's go back and talk about some best practices for asset health reporting. So number one is assign work orders to the correct when jobs are tied to the right equipment. So if your work orders aren't linked to assets or they're linked incorrectly, the metrics like your MTBF and your MTTR stop being reliable. So getting this right is what lets you confidently spot bad actors and compare similar assets. Number two, track downtime consistently and return assets online promptly. Downtime data only makes sense if assets are taken offline and put back online. If something stays offline by mistake, it can look like a major reliability issue when really it's just a tracking problem. So make sure you are setting your assets offline and then bringing them back online once they are ready to go. And third is review asset health trends over time, not in isolation. So one failure doesn't tell you much, but asset health reports full when you look at trends over time. So whether that's your MTBF or your MTTR, or if your downtime is improving, or if it's getting worse, that's what helps you decide where your preventive maintenance is working and where deeper investigation is needed. All right, now let's get into this last section, advanced reporting techniques.
Great. All right. So, yes, and I think I saw a top voted question asking about advanced reporting. So, this is perfect timing. So, now that we've covered the basics of finding your data in MaintainX, we're going to talk about some advanced reporting techniques so you can make the most of this information. So, first, we'll talk about how advanced reporting, when you break down data and arrange it in different ways to get deeper, more specific insights. Next slide. Advanced reporting starts where standard reporting leaves off. While standard reports are great for visibility because they tell you what happened, advanced reporting helps explain why it happened. So instead of stopping at top line numbers, this is about exploring what's happening beneath the surface. That's where the real insights start. To understand what's inside, take a closer look. Segmenting means slicing your reports into smaller pieces so you can see patterns that top line numbers hide. Think of it like cutting the burger in half. Now you can see each layer. Segmentation is one of the most powerful parts of advanced reporting. It allows teams to take a single report and break it down by things like asset, location, work type, or team. Often, the big insights are hidden when everything is rolled together. By segmenting data, patterns become more clear and issues that were invisible at high level start to stand out. Once you can uncover those patterns, the next challenge is keeping an eye on what matters most. And that's where we get into ongoing visibility into key insights. Advanced reporting also helps teams move from one time analysis to ongoing insight. Instead of searching for the same reports over and over, teams can save and revisit the views that they create and that matter most. This makes it easier to monitor trends over time and notice when something changes. It shifts reporting from a reactive task into a consistent part of how teams manage performance. And in some cases, teams need to answer questions that standard reports simply weren't built to handle. That's where we get into complex questions and making them easier. As maintenance programs mature, the questions teams ask become more connected and more specific. After breaking the data down, teams often need to combine and shape data to answer more complex questions. For example, analyzing parts consumption by asset to understand which equipment is driving inventory movement. Questions like this require pulling from multiple data sources and shaping the data intentionally. Advanced reporting tools makes it possible to answer these kinds of questions. And once teams can answer questions like these, reporting becomes even more powerful driver for insight and action. And now we'll go into, I think, our last question, which is what is the hardest part about translating data into action for you? Is it understanding what the numbers mean? Is it identifying where problems are coming from? Is it monitoring the same metric over time? Or could it be answering complex questions that span multiple data sets? So which one stands out the most to you as the hardest when it comes to translating data into action? That would be a hard one to pick, I think.
Yeah, I was actually even going to ask, like, do you have a prediction for what you think will be the highest? But I don't
Hmm.
want to put too much on the spot there. I feel like, okay, if I were to guess, I feel like mm, understanding what the numbers mean or D are going to be the highest. I kind of
I
cheated. I
think
think,
D is something that we definitely have seen, and that's where a report builder, which you're about to demo, is gonna help so much with, is combining these different data sets and going deeper with that. So that's maybe my bias, but we'll see.
yeah. All right. What is it? What is it telling us?
It looks like D. All right. Yeah, I mean, that's a very unsurprising response given that, it does just introduce so much complexity, and that said, obviously, identifying where problems are coming from, that's such a critical piece to understanding how to address it. Where is it coming from? But, yeah, these are, really solid responses.
Yeah. So it looks like I think about 52% of you folks voted for D. So you're definitely going to like the report builder feature that we'll talk about in this next demo section. So our last demo section for the day is our advanced reporting techniques. And give me a second. Okay, there we go. So, we're going to talk about a few tools here in MaintainX that can help you get the most out of your reports. So, the first one we'll talk about is filters and pivots and segmenting. So, if you click into any of the reports here in MaintainX, you'll see that it takes you over into the reporting details tab. So earlier, when we hovered over, we could click into it and see just like what work orders were associated or what assets were associated. But there's even more that we can see when it comes to these specific reports. Like we mentioned earlier, segmentation is all about knowing how to break the data down so that it becomes actionable. Let's look at this work orders by type report, for example. So I'm going to click into this one. And like I said, it's going to open up in the reporting details tab. And without segmenting this, I can say, yeah, we had 115 reactive work orders in the last, I think it was 90 days that I had have this date range set to. But with segmentation, we can actually explain where that reactive work is actually coming from. So for example, first off, I'm going to set a filter to just look at my reactive work orders because that's my main concern right now is how to get my reactive work orders down. So I'll add filter and set the work type to reactive because that's my main concern, like I just said. And down here, we'll see that we can now group this data by these different categories here. So we've got teams, assignees, asset. If I were to maybe select by asset, then we can segment the work orders by asset. And we'll find that perhaps more than half of the reactive work orders are coming from one specific asset. So then we know that that's where we need to focus our preventive maintenance, our inspections, or any parts planning. We can also look at location or site, and segmenting by this category can help us reveal if one plant is maybe underperforming compared to others. And that could perhaps, sorry, I said plant earlier, but I think just like an area in your location, but that could help point to any training gaps with the teams associated to that location, if there's any process differences or even any cultural issues worth investigating. So segmentation turns reporting from observation into decision making. Instead of saying, as an example, we had 500 hours of downtime, we can instead say of those 500 hours, 350 of them came from pump 4. So now we know that we need to work on the preventive maintenance plans for pump 4. All right. Next feature we'll talk about here in the reporting section is custom dashboards. So custom dashboards are built from the existing reports here in MaintainX. Let's say I want to identify the teams with the lowest compliance rates. What I can do is go back to my work orders tab and click into the created versus completed report. And I'll filter here by team. Sorry, there's a filter here. Let me get rid of that. I'll filter by team. Let's say I want to look at maintenance first. And then I also want to look at only repeating work orders. So I'll add a filter for recurrence down here and say only repeating work orders. Um, and then I can take this report here that has these filters already applied to it and add it to a dashboard. And I'll actually create a new dashboard here called PM compliance by team and create it. And now this report will be added to that custom dashboard. And then we'll do another one. Let's say we want to look at the operations team. Let me deselect maintenance, and then I will add this to the PM compliance by team dashboard and also add a name to it. So I know that this is for operations, created versus completed. And then that way I can have these reports saved and I can review them periodically instead of having to go and, open up reports and redo the filters every time. Here I've just got this one unified dashboard where I can compare my two teams. I don't think I named this one correctly, but this one, the first one that I added was specifically for the maintenance team. So I would have added maintenance created versus completed. And then here's operations created versus completed. So I can compare my different teams. Another thing with the custom dashboards is that, all right, so since I'm so zoomed in, you can't see the whole window, but over here, there we go. When you create a custom dashboard, it's only available to you until you press the publish button. And then anyone who has access to reports in your organization will be able to also see that dashboard. So takeaway here with custom dashboards is that they help keep important metrics visible without needing to rebuild your reports each time. And they're most effective when you're reviewing them regularly and updating them as priorities change. Okay, last feature we're going to talk about here is the report builder. So this is one of our newest and more powerful reporting features called report builder. So let's just go back to the main tab. You know what? I'm going to make this a little bit bigger just so we can see the whole thing. So we're in the reporting module and we're going to head to the build report button. Now, up until now, we've been working with the standard reports in MaintainX, but the report builder is different. It actually lets you build your own reports when the standard ones don't quite answer the questions that you're asking. So think of the standard reports that we've looked at as your ready-made answers, but report builder is what you use when you want to ask a more specific or more advanced question. Now, in this scenario, let's say I wanted to track my reactive work orders by priority and week for the last 90 days. We're going to start off by building manually first, just so you can see how this tool works. And when building from scratch, the first step is choosing your data set. So I'll select work orders, and this is going to define what data that we are working with. So work order is already selected, and I'll make sure to set the aggregation here to count all. You don't have to choose an aggregation, but it does influence the way the data appears on the report. And I'll add some more columns here. So I'm going to add a created at column, and I'm also going to add priority. And one thing I should have done as well is just named it right from the get-go, just to make it easier for myself. So I think I said reactive work orders by priority and week for the last 90 days. I'm going to just copy and paste this over here. So that way, as I'm building my report, I remember what it is that I'm actually looking for and what columns it is that I need to add. So I've added the columns that I need. For created at, I'm also going to head to the advanced section and I want to group it by week. And then I'm going to select the visualizations. You've got a few different options here with visualization. You can either do table, bar, line, or pie. I'm going to do a line group, line graph, and then I'll be able to choose what goes on each axis. So for y-axis, I'll do created at. For the x-axis, I'll do created at, and then for the y-axis, I'll do work order, and I want to segment by priority. And then it just take a second there, and as you can see, we've got this line graph now that is our reactive work orders grouped by priority, and then some filters as well, because I said I wanted just the last 90 days. So I'll add a filter for created at days last 90. There you go. And then I also said I only wanted to look at reactive. So then I need to add a work type filter, and that's right here. And I'll make sure that is set to reactive. So there we go. Just like that. I now have a report for my reactive work orders by priority, grouped by weeks for the last 90 days or the last 3 months. So it's a very powerful tool. There's a lot in here. We could spend all day, but we don't have time. We only actually have 3 minutes. But we're pretty much at the end of this demo section. So one thing I'll say is that like the report builder is essentially when we want to answer questions that we can't with the standard reports. And also, if you don't want to go through the process of building the reports from scratch, there is also the option to just build from a template. So there's lots of templates there that you can explore. All right, I think that's all for this section. We're going to just go back and talk about some best practices, and then we might go a couple minutes over time, folks, but we're right at the end. We'll just share some resources, and we'll try to get you out of here as quick as possible. So we appreciate your patience. Let's go back here, and there we go. So some best practices when it comes to advanced reporting. Number one, use filters to get focused insights. You want to start with the high level view, but then you want to break it down using filters to find where issues or opportunities exist. And also segment your data by one variable at a time. So just choose asset, or just choose location, or just choose team, so that you can avoid drawing any wrong conclusions. Number two, use custom dashboards to monitor trends over time. Your dashboards are most useful when you revisit them regularly. And by keeping key reports in one place, you can spot changes over time instead of reacting to single data points. And third, a custom report answers a question that you check more than once, save it to a dashboard. So I didn't actually show that in when I built that report, but I could have saved that to a dashboard so I didn't have to go and rebuild it every time I needed it. So that's another best practice for the report builder. Here's one slide. We're going to skip through this. It's essentially just how to translate some of the KPIs to your different audiences, but you're going to get a recording of this, so you can always just pause on the screen if you want to look at it more closely. And Simone, I'll let you take care of our key takeaways, and then we'll close out with some final resources and a little announcement about one of our events coming up. So stick around if you can. Simone, take it away with our key takeaways.
Yes. Okay, great. So first and foremost, clean data drives useful reports. Reporting only works when work orders, assets, time, and downtime data are logged consistently and accurately. Second is the single source of truth for multiple different views. One data set or the same data should be shaped differently depending on whether it's used by technicians, managers, or leaders. And then finally, turn data into insights. Now you can break down data so teams can choose the right actions to be efficient. Great. And that's it.
Yeah,
Noja.
so thank you so much, Simone. Thanks for joining today. We'll talk about some key resources. And you know what, folks, we actually have one more poll, but this should be pretty easy. We're going to launch it on screen. We just want to know what you thought about the webinar, how valuable you felt about it. So you'll see a little question pop up on your screen about how valuable you felt this webinar was. You'll get a survey after the webinar that you can fill out as well. Help us help you. We want to make sure these experiences are actually teaching you the things that you want to know. So if you've got feedback, as constructive as it is, please let us know. We want to know. Now, some final resources if you want to learn more about MaintainX. There's MaintainX Academy, and here you can learn at your own pace through certifications, guides, and courses. The next resource is MaintainX Community, and here you can learn from other maintenance professionals through discussion boards. So really great place to network with other folks in the same industry as you and see how they're doing things at their locations and their sites. And then the last one is if you need to speak to an expert, you can schedule time to speak with a representative and learn if MaintainX could be the right fit for your organization. And then one last thing, I'll do a little shout out here. We have our next WrenchWorks event coming up in March, and that's taking place in Houston. So, folks, if you want to come out, learn about MaintainX, learn about what's on our roadmap, if you want to get certified, I'm sure there's a few of you here that have maybe not done your MaintainX administrator certification. Well, here's an opportunity for you to do it in person. You get to meet me and my team and a bunch of other amazing folks here at MaintainX. So that's taking place on March 5th in Houston. You don't have to reside in Houston to join. You can fly in from any city, country. We had someone come in from, I think, Denmark at our last one in Atlanta. So, if you can make it there, you're more than welcome. And hopefully we'll see you there. Thank you so much, everyone. I know we're a minute over time there, but thank you for attending Reporting 101. Please remember to fill out just a 2-minute survey following this webinar. It helps us make these sessions the best they can be. Thank you again, Simone, for joining us today and bestowing us with all your knowledge. Yeah, and we'll see you guys at the next one.